Hi, everybody. This is Lauren Baker with Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's SEJ show. With me today, we have a belated show with Grant, the non-jet lagged Grant Simmons. Grant, how's it going?
Completely non-jet lagged. That's all right. And belated because I did miss the last session that we had planned. I apologize profusely. I was stuck at an airport. What a surprise.
It happened to me so many times. Don't worry. This is a great thing about the internet. We can always redo everything. So it's great to have you. We've known each other for a long time. And by surprisingly jet lagged, you traveled in from where? The UK?
UK. I was visiting my parents, who are wonderful people, and some Tottenham Hotspur legends, which right now is a wonderful team.
Wait, which team is this?
This is Tottenham Hotspur, English Premier League. As they say, it's the hope that kills you. We have a chance of finishing in the top four, which is amazing. And so I met some of the old guys of Tottenham. It's fun.
Nice. How long were you there for?
5 days.
Wait, really?
Yeah. They have planes now, Lauren. You don't have to take the steamer across. It's pretty good.
Awesome. So, Grant, we first met years ago. You've spoken at multiple SEJ events, and we've worked together in the past. Would you mind giving our audience a little bit about your background when you got involved in SEO, search marketing, digital marketing, what you've done over the years, and then that will kind of bridge into the rest of the conversation we're going to have today.
Got it. So that's going to be 42 minutes of the chat, and the rest is going to be what we do.
You're on the clock.
Okay, I'll be quick. So I got to the States in '94. Got a job in a marketing agency. Had some prior programming experience. Helped them to kind of move some of their email to get that working right. And then we got GE Plastics wanted to do an intranet. I was the only one that knew some programming, so I programmed it. This is, say, not 95, 96.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you say 1994? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I go back a long way. I was programming like BASIC and stuff when in the 70s, and then I got a job straight out of school, Fortran 4 computer operator, DEC PDP-11. All this to say, I forgot most of it, to be honest. Yeah. But I learned or picked up HTML pretty quick. So I helped with an intranet, and then we had the city of Santa Monica, wanted to have a website, santamonica.com, and also wanted to show up.
Nice.
And so I read everything that was around. I started my company, I registered the domain, I just looked it up, 1998. And so I worked in that traditional marketing agency, did a little bit of stuff, left there in 2001. And started my own agency. That was fun. About 50% web work. Left there, went to work for a family business. Quick aside, don't ever work for a family business.
Unless you're part of the family.
Yeah, that's true. It was my ex's family. And yeah, wonderful people. I say that just in case they have a hitman out there, but wonderful people. And then went to work for the search agency, largest independent agency in Los Angeles. Worked there for 7 years, had an amazing SEO team there, ended up driving the SEO product and social product for them, really making sure there was a bridge between the sales side and the team effort. And then in 2014, went to work for homes.com in-house and headed up SEO, got them out of a penalty when I got there. That's another story. And then just left there in January. In the meantime, for the last 5 years, I've been consulting, moonlighting in the evenings for an agency out of San Francisco, helping some of the paid search clients with SEO efforts, and that's been fun. So that's in a nutshell. I think I saved us at least 37 minutes. Though.
Yeah, nice. That was pretty good. Good. So you've pretty much spent as much time in-house as you have agency, maybe a little bit more on the agency side, but with like the consulting and, within business and everything else. Would you recommend that most people within digital marketing, SEO, search marketing do a little bit of both? And what have you learned? What have you learned that? First of all, what have you learned on the agency side that helped you in-house?
That's
And then
very,
secondly, after you were in-house, right? What did you learn anything that you have maybe had done differently in the past when you were on the agency side that you may carry into the future?
I'm not sure the answer is going to be as quick as the question, but
Well, we got a lot of time.
even better. So I think having my own agency was all about it's tough to get clients. I think everyone in the agency world agrees it's tough to get clients through prospecting, cold calling, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think we all agree the easiest way of getting clients is referrals. So then it comes down to you can't guarantee referrals, but what you can do is put the pieces in place. The pieces in place is really promising and delivering. And in between that is communicating.
Yeah.
So I think that was the real key there. And when I went to work in-house for the family company, what I found there was a pretty big organization, about 1,000 people, a few more than that. And what I found there is having the agency side, I knew two things. One, it's tough to say yes to everything. Two, you don't have the resources that you imagine you have when you're in the agency side. So the agency, you make a recommendation, expect to get done. And what I realized in-house is they don't have the resources most of the time, or they have competing priorities all the time. So I learned that was good. And then also learning working with external agencies when I was in-house then was agencies don't understand how companies work. They don't understand that you get a budget. And so if it goes over budget, you have to find that money somewhere, or you just don't have that money. And I don't think agencies understand the pressure that happens in-house, that someone could totally agree with you, but can get nothing done. So I think that was key. And then I keep going. The search agency, I started off on the account side, which was essentially making sure expectations were met. That's essentially the job. You sell it, you make sure people understand what was sold, you make sure they understand what they're going to get, and then you have to deliver it. And if you can't deliver it, as I said before, communication is key. Just letting them know when and what.
You know, I'm sorry, I have something went down the wrong pipe. So
It's okay.
promising and delivering, very important, but also communication. And I think that component of it is probably the most important. I mean, of course, you want to deliver what you promise, but some things don't happen on time. Some things change. Google may change. Strategy may change halfway through the project, whatever it may be. But the ability to communicate that, right? And then, you know, there's a lot of folks I know that are independent SEOs or consultants that they're like, they get a contract, they do the audit, they're done. I hand you the audit, I'm done, right? There's no value there. Right.
There's very little value there.
Yeah. I mean, there's some value maybe in the audit itself, but the ability to continuously keep that communication going. And by communication, I don't mean a meeting, but I mean email, text, maybe an occasional phone call, just letting people know that something may be done a couple days late, letting people know something might be done a couple days early. But just letting them know, right? It's just so important at the end of the day, and can often be overlooked, which surprises me when.
Nothing surprises me. All right, so at the search agency and at homes.com, what never ceased to surprise me was how agency and in-house or in-house and agency. All right. I said this many times. The search agency, we used to have a lot of the tools vendors pitch us. Now, the team at the search agency was some of the best SEOs at the time. So this was 2014. Excuse me, I'm losing track here. 2008 through to 2014. Right. Some of the best SEOs at the time. We were working on massive projects, you know, for folks like Sam's Club and folks like Toshiba and Hyundai. We're working on really massive product. We'd get talks vendors come up and get on the phone, and they'd be trying to sell us a platform. They go, so do you guys know what a title tag is? And I'm going, I won't swear, but WTF? Yeah, I know what a title tag is, mate. Just tell me what you can do to help me scale a 20,000 page site. What can you do? So there's always a disconnect, I think, with agencies to in-house. I come back to the fact you have to respect the in-house talent. You have to respect them for one main decision. They did choose you as an agency, which means they must be smart enough to do that. So you have to respect that there might be some skill set. You may have to expect that they are honest, truthful, and upfront. If they say they have $10,000, you hope they have $10,000. If they say that it's going to take 3 weeks, it's going to take 3 weeks. And that disconnect between what agencies think about in-house people and what the reality is of in-house people is often a massive disconnect.
Do you think that pre-COVID, we've done this. I like to spend time.
Was that pre-COVID? I don't even remember that far back.
I like to visit clients. I like to spend time in the office, get to know people, things like that. I think that is something that needs to be done. I also believe I'm a huge proponent if it makes sense from a budget perspective on the agency side to even do that before going down the RFP route or the contract route, right?
Yeah,
you have to know what can be done. Like I worked on a project a couple of years ago where it was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And after it was signed, they're just like, oh man, sorry, we can't give you access to any of that. Oh, security won't let you. Oh, development won't let you. Oh, we can't get that done. Oh, we'll try to get that in Q3, Q4. And then you feel guilty, right?
Well,
because you signed a contract and you're trying to deliver.
I think guilt is a tough word. All right. I think you feel like you're letting them down, but you have to understand why. So look, I've had many times where I've hired an agency that has overpromised and underdelivered. All right. And I hate to say that it happens more often than not, because they don't build in the idea of not everything can be done and you have to maybe pivot. And if you pivot and there's a few more resources needed, you can't go to a client and say, look, this is the justification of why we're going to have an addendum to the contract.
Right.
You know, and I think that is part of the communication, part of building trust. I do think it would be wonderful if you could go pre-RFP to see a client. I don't think that's practical or reasonable to expect all the time. What I do think is you do a crap ton of research. So when you have an exploratory call, you know most things about not just the client and their business, but you also know about the people you're talking to. That kind of level of research is what I would expect from an agency, not to come in and assume that I know nothing, assume the company's X when it's actually Y. There's questions to be asked. I know you do this because I've worked with you and you're great, and the guys, you hire are great. But I'll come back to that disconnect of expectations versus reality, and just that communication can solve that, can avoid a bad kind of relationship. And when I had my agency, you talked about touch basing. I started off with one client, which was the city of Santa Monica. I ended up with 140 clients. Now, I wasn't working with 140 clients all the time, but I was reaching out to 140 people every single week, whether they were working with me or not. And believe it or not, back in those days, not everyone looked at their email in the 2001 era. But I was calling people all the time, just saying, how you doing? What's up?
Yeah.
What we did for you, is it working? What can we do now? That's key. Everyone's a customer.
I remember like in 2010. So tried doing the big agency thing once and didn't work out. But one of the things was, when we were trying to figure it out, we were going to start using Salesforce or something as our CRM. And this was before Salesforce was fairly modernized. It was still pretty clunky. And the consultant was like, well, how do you communicate with the clients? I'm like, well, some of them I text, and some of them I call, some of them I email, some of them I DM on Twitter, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, but that's how we communicate. That's how you naturally communicate with people that you would be friends with anyway, or that you have a relationship with, based upon their performed form of communication and my own. And then the person's like, well, how am I going to track all of this within Salesforce? I'm like, well, you guys should figure it out, because
That's
if I'm
100%.
doing it, there's other people doing it as well. Right. But it's just like hitting people up, giving them a call, sending an email, hit them on LinkedIn, whatever it may be. It's
So
important
people,
at the end of the day.
I know people that work with me know that I have a whiteboard. So I have a massive whiteboard on the wall, the most I could afford when I was a startup. And I put every single client on there and the last time I touched base with them. And it's in front of everyone. Now, like I said, 140 clients, we're working pretty consistently with 20 to 30 of them. And so,
Right.
yeah, I kept a sheet of paper that just said when I spoke to someone, I'd mark it off. Yeah, I didn't have Salesforce. I wasn't that big time, Lauren. Clunky or not.
We never got Salesforce either.
Why the high rise? I think Basecamp, high rise. That was a pretty good tool. Like I said, they don't make anymore, but yeah, that kind of stuff. I think having a PM tool as well useful.
So now, working on the agency side, we know it's important to understand in-house expectations, understand if something can be done, to be nimble enough to pivot if something can't be done that was promised previously. There's surprises that come up, and honestly, it's usually the bigger the company, the less that can be done, or the more surprises, or people move around. We're going through the great resignation, whatever you want to call it right now, right? So I've worked with clients before where you go in the office. I mean, I've walked into the office. There's no director of SEO anymore. There's no SEO managers. And there's no VP of digital marketing anymore because they've all left, right? It's like basically empty office.
Yeah.
So, and that's happening quite a bit right now. So there's all kinds of different things happening on the agency side. Now you were in-house with the family business, and then you went to homes.com. After all those years working at the search agency and doing your own thing previously, what did you learn from an experience perspective on the agency side that helped you in-house? Because one thing I will say is that I came to visit you once on the home.com floor of the DE building, and I was really impressed with the culture that you had built with that team. And you were very upfront with me. You were like, we're one of the smaller teams, but we're a tight team. And that really stuck with me. So, what did you learn on that side, on the agency side, that was important to bring in-house? And for agency, there's a lot of agency people and consultants, right? Like my LinkedIn, I don't know about yours, but I'm getting notifications left and right of people like that used to be consultants and agency folks going in-house. And I've had a couple of people on this show, like Melissa Fash and others, that were agency or consultants for years and are very happy in-house. So what are some things that you brought in-house that you learned on the agency side that really helped? And what are some recommendations that you have for anyone that's looking to make that transition from consultants or agency over to in-house?
So I think the big thing was building an in-house team that mirrors how agencies work well. So yeah, and I appreciate that. We had a really good team. And I inherited a lot of that. Not so much of the culture because we changed companies and stuff, but essentially it was making sure people had an expertise, an expectation of what they were supposed to do, and that they knew how it fitted into the bigger picture. So what I learned at the agency, at the search agency, like I said, we had a brilliant team, and we grew. I was employee 80, and by the time I left, we were like 250. And what we saw is specialization was really key, but the specialization with a silo was not good. So everyone knew what they had to do, but they also knew what other people were doing. And we had team meetings that were cross-functional as well as vertical type teams. So content, promotions, linking, architecture, tech, account management. So we had those teams. So the thing about Homes is we had people kind of split up a little bit between brands and split up between kind of what they were supposed to do, what they were supposed to be doing. And so really it came about was focusing content on content, like understanding what the main goals of the blog might be, understanding how we could get link acquisition, understanding what our voice was across both social and content, making sure they were aligned. So it really came down to specializing with understanding of where you fit into the bigger picture.
It's really interesting. Another thing too is that one thing I noticed, and we didn't talk about this before the show, but I'll bring it up. Let me know if you don't want to talk about it or not.
Thank you.
But
Thank you for that experience.
one thing that I noticed when you were at Holmes is that you were working with various agencies on different projects, right? Yes. So and this is public. So you worked with Neo Mam Studios, who I love, Danny Ashton and Giselle.
Yeah,
I love Navarro. I love them to death. Like, I've had Giselle on the show before. I've always been a fan of their work. I was a fan of the work that they did with you. I think a lot of the stuff coming out of the UK right now is actually kind of based upon the work that they had done, right?
Yeah.
So they were just on top of everything.
No, UK's great. Yeah, UK's great for content marketing promotions. That I wouldn't say America's bad. I'm American. Hi.
Yeah.
But I would say there's a different ethic there, and there's a different way of communicating there that's very effective for digital PR.
And then you had worked with some other different content companies and stuff like that in the US. So it seemed like you were doing some work project by project, which was really interesting. And I know some other folks in-house that have done that as well. Do you suggest that? Like, what did you learn from that? What was your reasoning behind hiring multiple agencies? Was it to kind of play the game show where the winner gets, whoever stays on the island gets the big prize, or how does that typically work? And what did you learn from that? And what are your suggestions for any listeners who are currently in-house that are working with multiple agencies to get them to agencies to either work in silos, work together, or at least not fight?
Well, hopefully there's no fighting. That's part of the prerequisite. It's like no fighting with other agencies. Look, it is really difficult in most in-house scenarios to have brilliant people. And no disrespect to brilliant people that work in-house, but it's tough to hold on to brilliant people. And it's tough to have folks that are across the gamut. And by that, I mean experts in everything. Digital PR is a classic example. You generally have a PR person in-house, but they don't understand, exactly how to do outreach in an SEO standpoint. And certainly they generally go after the larger publications and things like that, or industry pubs. So I think there's sometimes a knowledge gap that can be filled by external agencies. There's also a fact of, unless you go with a really big agency, and when I got to Holmes, we had a contract with a really big agency. I won't say who it is, but rhymed with Bimmerman out of New York. But anyway, they charge a lot of money for not much accountability. All right. Yeah. And so I think that the way I like to do things is I bring in smaller agencies that I know they have finite resources. And so I know there's finite projects that they could address. And I address the needs of the company by having multiple agencies working on not similar, but projects that have hopefully similar outcomes, which are visibility, great content for SEO purposes or for brand purposes. So I do look for alliance, and Neo Mam's great. You guys were great. I used the IPL rank and some other guys as well. Honestly, I'm quite demanding. You know that. I know what's feasible and possible, and I also know, based on my agency experience, what is a great outcome. So I've seen agencies try to justify poor outcomes with excuses that aren't feasible, and I've seen agencies, and we can say Neo Mam and Giselle and Danny, when he worked there, they were great, really great. They had some great ideas. They did some great execution. I didn't always agree with them, and that's tough to have a client like me in that sense. But the outcome was good. I think it's probably the same with you as well, Lauren. Sorry, but I have my standards. You represent a brand. You understand it's not just about I want a link. It's I want something that's great for the brand, that's liable to get traffic, that gives me visibility, and something that I can show internally as a justification for the expense. So, you breathe. I stop breathing to go.
There's another thing that I just remembered from when you were at Holmes, is that you had done a lot of co-branded initiatives with, I guess, movie studios and movie
Correct.
releases and things like that. And then, talking about getting a link. So the ability to get a link when you're working with a film, right? To get a link from the film side or to get the brand out there. And when you're at a company like homes.com, you have a brand to protect and to project, right? Are there opportunities that are available for established brands out there, such as partnering, media partnerships and things like that, that maybe companies are overlooking? And what kind of other partnerships that were not necessarily digital that really helped you with building the brand and overall presence and from an SEO perspective?
Sure. So Homes.com, I started off, we didn't really have a B2C necessarily focus. I say that once again, with due respect to everyone that had done that, but we had the big agency that was doing our B2C, doing our PR and everything else, and we fired them. I fired them within 4 months, just because the ROI wasn't there. That's really key, and you come back to that. But then we get pitched a lot. As a brand, you get pitched a lot of ideas. My email box floweth over with folks that want to leverage the equity that we'd built up with our customers for other things. I answered every single one. All right. The first thing is, you don't know what you don't know. So the movie thing came about because I thought it would be a really good idea. The studio pitched me, and they have people that work for them that do the pitches, but
Right.
they pitched me on Poltergeist 2. All right. So
Poltergeist 2.
Yeah,
The remake.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's exactly the way I felt afterwards. No, but it aligned with me with a Halloween push, because it was going to be launching at Halloween. So I ended up getting something.
When you're checking out homes, that's
right.
When you're checking out the inside of people's homes, like what your neighbors are doing, what they've updated, whether they've done anything to the garage, what a 4-bedroom looks like compared. That's what Halloween's all about when you're a homeowner or you're looking for homes.
Well, let me tell you what I did.
Okay.
No. The thing is, Poltergeist. So we had some visibility. So we pitched some ideas back to them, because they say, how are you going to give us visibility? It's a two-way street, and it's really key to have something on your side. So we did some ideation. I have to say, I can't remember who came up with the idea, but I'll take complete total ownership of it. Ishaunted.com. All right. So I came up with ishaunted.com, where you could put your address in of where you live, and we would tell you if your house was haunted. Now, spoiler alert, every single house was haunted. We built a spin engine that would spin content and say, your house at 37 thing is haunted because it's based on an old burial ground and things like that. And then we took Google Maps, Google Street View, and we overlaid some ghosts on their house. All right. So we were able to bring something to that party, and Poltergeist was able to bring something to us, which was visibility on the site, co-promotions, cross-promotions with their other partners. And so those kind of things are win-win. And no matter, and I hate to jump around a little bit, no matter what we did with outside partners, we tried to get a win-win. Now, Poltergeist 2 was not a resounding success. We tied ourselves to that, but it's fine because we got the visibility.
Right.
We did the same with Amazon, really bad dog show that came and went. But we got visibility. But you have to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. So you have to
There
be
you go.
selective of who you partner with. But yeah, so we did that. We worked with USA Today, some of the publications there where you buy into, a real estate edition and stuff like that. But once again, they all came out of answering people and saying, what's the pitch? What's the win-win scenario here? And if it wasn't, we just didn't do it. But we did some really cool stuff. The content team did some cool stuff with Fisher Price and building one of those houses. Those houses you've never put together for your kids. They're plastic.
Yeah.
They fall to bits within 3 minutes.
I have a whole garage full of stuff that I never put together for my kids.
Voila, there you go. So we did it with them where we got some influencers, and this wasn't on my team. It was the content team after. Anyway, so they did it where they got 3 influencers to build those houses, then decorate them. And it was quite successful. Look, once again, you have to have an idea of what outcome is successful. And as an agency, you have to understand what that is. And as an in-house guy, you have to understand what it looks like, because we have to justify everything. Why did you spend $5,000 here? What was the ROI? Why is this partnership worth it if we're going to make a change to the website? Because that haunted house stuff, we did both the DVD release and the movie. Mm-hmm. And so we revisited ishaunted.com. It was still going as of January, and we're still getting like 40, 50,000 people a month going to it.
Amazing.
It's amazing. But it was fun. We also did something cool where we didn't align ourselves. It wasn't a pitch from a brand, but we did Star Wars when it was released. We piggybacked on that. We kind of hijacked that with City Wars. So we had City Wars where you chose light or dark city. What one was best, and so you could choose that, and that was really cool. But we did a lot of fun stuff. We did a game, an actual video game we created for 4th of July for the movie. What was that called? The Independence Day.
Oh wow!
So we did a video game that was actually pretty good, where you could shoot down defenders. Shoot down aliens, and you were defending a city, just like an old Space Invaders game. It was
yeah.
But it's fun. That kind of stuff is fun. I'm sorry to go off on that. I'm passionate. I love
it. I love it. And I'll tell you a recent story as well. So like, I have a client that I've worked with for years. They're a beauty school. I'm over a decade, and we've established them as being one of the top publishers with like hair and skin tutorials, right? And things like that. So I get pitched all the time. And exactly. Obviously an expert. Yeah. For those of you who are listening, Grant and myself both have exquisite manes of just
flowing
really
locks.
thick curly hair. So, so I get pitched all the time by brand. This is the upsetting thing. So I'll get pitched by a good brand with a good idea. And a recent brand was, I'm not going to say their name, but they were an eyeglasses brand. And their idea was how, makeup and hair tips for people that are wearing different types of eyeglasses. And I'm like, that is brilliant. Let's do it. And I have the models and photographers will do the hairstyles and we'll wear your eyeglasses. Oh no, we can't do that. I mean, why not? Oh, this is just to get a link. We want to contribute a piece to your blog to get a link. And I'm like, no, but your whole entire positioning on the market is sending boxes of eyeglasses samples to your customers online for them to be able to try out. Just send that to us. Oh, I don't think I can get permission to do that. I just really want a link. But you get this hat. Okay, let's take your half-assed idea and let's turn it into a whole-assed idea, right? Send me the glasses. We'll get models to wear the glasses. We'll talk about it. It will rank at the top of Google for hairstyles to wear with round glasses, with pointy glasses, everything else. We'll win. You'll win. People will actually click through those links, maybe go to your site and buy something. Crickets. Because the mistake that companies make with outreach, especially startups, is that they're only doing it for growth hacking and for linking, right?
Well,
They came to me with a great idea that they're only worried about getting a link from a .edu. And I even replied in the email, I'm like, listen, this is a .edu. I don't know what our DA is or DR. I don't really care. This is a link that you would probably die for, but I'm not going to give you a link just to link to you. Let's work together. And there's like nothing. And I'm like, God, what an imbecile.
Let's talk about,
what an imbecile to not follow up with that kind of an offer. So you know what I'm going to do now, Grant? I have 3 or 4 different eyeglasses companies that I'm going to reach out to and say, hey, we want to do a piece about the best makeup and hairstyles to wear with different types of sunglasses. Summer's coming up, or eyeglasses. Why don't you send us some? We'll include you in the piece. We'll name you, link to you, tag you on social, everything else. And I just thinking with blinders, like putting together an SEO strategy while wearing blinders gets you nowhere. That's
well, even while wearing glasses will get you nowhere. But look, it is the I'm trying to think of the right words here, Lauren, that's very quotable for you to put down later. But it's essentially the benefit of low expectations,
right?
Is something that most people get from bad education. So they thought it was a great idea for a link without seeing what the big picture, because they've been told that getting a link is great.
Right.
And that's all you should do is get a link. Now, I'll tell you a silly story. Napster. We all remember Napster. They were one of our clients. And I pitched them an idea. iTunes came out with a list of music genres. I said to them, hey, you should just build a list of music genres. You have all the music. Just make a page about music genres, and then you can it's going to be, and they go, that sounds like a lot of work. All right. So you think about the idea of as agencies can pitch what we believe is a brilliant idea, but a brilliant idea falls in a forest and no one's there to actually implement it. No one hears it. So I went home that night and built out a one-page site, musicgenrelist.com, registered domain. If you do a search, I rank number 1 or number 2. Wikipedia's number 1 or number 2.
For what query?
Music genres, different types of music, anything. I mean, it's now a 30 or 40 page site, and the high point I got 160,000 people a month. Now I get about 30 to 40. I use it as a test site. But the bottom line is, if you are in-house, listen to your agency. If you're an agency, do what's best for your client. And if that means that you can't implement it, like you said, you just tell them no. You're not going to do something for a link. But you know, my standpoint was Napster or Homes, when you work in there, you can't do everything. What you've got to do is be selective about what works best. The agency partnership is about helping you decide priorities, because you can't do everything, and you can do that. I'm sorry, I'm on a roll here. Sorry, mate.
No, keep on going.
Yeah, that idea of empowering your clients to understand what should be prioritized and how that priorities come about is from understanding what their expectations are as far as the ideal outcomes, and tailoring what you pitch to them to make sure that aligns, and letting them choose from 3 ideas, 4 ideas, 5 ideas, prioritize towards the outcomes that they want, the outcomes they need, and the outcomes they can justify internally to give you more work. I will breathe.
I love it. I love it. By the way, I just did search Google for music genres. This is the site.
Musicgenrelist.com.
Yes. And I could tell because instead of buy me a coffee, you have buy me a cup of tea.
That is me. So please, anyone out there, buy me a cup of tea. But it's crowdsourced now. I get, 20 to 30 emails a week just giving me new genres, and I cross-check them and stuff. I know nothing about music, but it's the great thing about being an SEO. You don't have to understand your client's business 100%. You just have to understand what your client needs from SEO for that business.
I love that. How important is it for SEOs to have a side project like music genre
100%.
list?
100%. If you're not doing stuff outside of your day to day, I think you're doing a disservice to the person that's hiring you. So the person you're working in house for, or for your agency clients. Now, I never do anything that is a conflict of interest. So I never worked on any real estate placement. I worked at homes, and I only worked on homes after 6 p.m. and weekends. And I think if you work in an agency, you should have some projects that are informing you beyond, because you can't all be Glengate. You can't always have 50, 60 sites that you can look at and understand what's happening. But if you have 4 or 5 that you control, that you can test and see what's up, you could be much better at setting expectations, because you kind of have a better idea of what changes can make a difference. And I hate people that say to me, well, I'm not sure, or it depends. I get it. It's a fallback for SEOs, but you should have a pretty good idea of what you do, if it's implemented correctly, what the outcome should be, because that's how you justify why you have a job, or how you justify why you should be hired. So
I have a question for you. So,
sure. Married happily, but thank you.
We are live right now, and we have had some questions come in.
Sure.
Dominic Costa on LinkedIn asks, he's wondering how you assess the ROI from the agency, the New York agency that rhymed with Bimmerman, before letting them go.
Sure.
Like, how did you assess that ROI, especially an ROI that was PR, maybe SEO, maybe digital marketing based? How did you run through that?
So we're lucky enough to have a full stack of marketing channels at our disposal. So we ran some TV ads in limited markets. So we checked in page search if there was an increase in clicks or anything in those specific markets. Based on what we spent, there was very little uptick. Also did a brand lift study with Google. So based on YouTube videos and things like that had been pushed out, it's 4 to 5 weeks, depends on the volume you have. They can tell you where there's an uptick in recognition and things like that. And then just looking at the quality of what was produced, there was some really good stuff, but the low expectations, the idea of, if you have a really good piece of content, but it shows up for 2 keywords, you get almost 0 traffic and you've got 4 links, or you get 50 links and no traffic. I mean, there's got to be a good mix. So it was basically an assessment of that. We'd already stopped working with them for the TV stuff, but it really was a nail in the coffin where we saw how much we're paying them and how little we were getting out, as far as key stuff, traffic, visibility, page views, all the stuff that drove our business. We weren't seeing that reflected in what we were paying.
Great. And Dominic says thank you. So thank you, Grant.
You're welcome, Dominic.
One clarification. So that was after you were there for 4 months. How long had they been working beforehand?
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. So you had a lot of data. This was not a short term, hey, you didn't get it done in a quarter, let you go.
It was very much. And plus, we're in the throes of a Panda penalty. So my interview process was talking with Searchmetrics and because they were agency on staff at that time. Right. And talking to them as part of the interview process to understand. But I knew it was Panda. That was confirmed by John Mueller when I spoke to him at SMX London. We were in the throes of it. We were doing everything right to get out of it, but I just accelerated that. So we had a lot of data and we had a urgency as well.
Interesting. Very cool. Very cool. So we talked about what you had learned in the agency and consulting world to implement in-house. We talked about what you had learned in-house in the agency consulting world. I dabbled a little bit into like pre-qualifying before pitching or pre-qualifying before sending a contract. Any other recommendations you would give agencies before signing on to something to make sure it's doable?
Yeah.
Would you
It's
recommend talking to more than just the SEO team, perhaps?
yeah. So the main thing is giving them something to do. All right. So I'll ask them for some information. And if they can't get it to me, I know it's potentially a challenge. So that information could be, I'd like GSC report. I'd like, just a PDF of a GSC report, or I'd like for analytics, or I want to know what your other channels are doing, what percentage of your traffic is SEO. Now, some people can roll it off, and that's fine. But then I'll ask for a report I know they won't have. Can you show me the breakdown, the channel report for January of last year? So, something like that I'll know if it's quick to get there. And I'll be honest with the folks, the main point of contact. I'll say, what do you think the biggest challenges will be? And they generally say resources, priorities. So and I'll ask them, what could we do to help facilitate that or to solve that for you? Because look, in-house people, they really want an agency to help them. That's why they hire you. They do not want to be able to tell you no all the time. But hopefully that answers. But seriously, that's the two things I would do. I'd ask them for something and see if we get it back. And I'd ask what the challenges were. Now, when you work in a big agency, you don't always have the ability to say no. But in my own agency, I definitely turned down business after the 3 months, the first 3 month honeymoon period, where I said yes to absolutely everyone. It didn't matter what they were asking for. If they would ask me to have my shirt, I would say, how many would you like? As long as you sign a contract. But once you get picky, then you should get picky.
I finally learned how to say no, Grant. It took a while.
No, Grant?
No, just say no.
Gotcha. No.
It took a good 20 years. But I finally learned how to say no. Told someone no the other day. Referred them to someone else. It felt good. It felt good.
It feels good. It feels good for them as well. Much better than getting into a relationship and finding it doesn't work.
Yeah. Next question from Connect Danville, who I'm going to guess is the site or the company. Danville, I believe, is in New York. Do you think local SEO will become more relevant to go against big players like Yelp and TripAdvisor? So sounds like they're doing a lot of competing against the review aggregators out there that have not only dominated local, but dominated everything from SaaS to travel to everything else. And even Google's in this market as well. Now, how important is it still to focus on local SEO to be able to compete against the larger aggregators out there on the market?
All right. Well, we can say music genre list is up against Google and all music and everything else. Look, the bottom line is it's really important if it's relevant for your customers. And I hate to do the diatribe of, it's all about relevance and it's all about query and it's all about, alignment of query but it is. And if it's a local intent search, eventually Google will understand that there is value in a local resource. Now, the reason TripAdvisor and Yelp, another guy, Yelp less so now, to be honest, but TripAdvisor does so well, is they really do add value. And they answer super long tail queries that are super relevant for people traveling. And that's their market. So if you're in the travel business, Mr. Danville, it's a challenge, but you've got to say, how do you offer a better experience? And for me, the biggest challenge I have with places like TripAdvisor, and this is in many aggregators, is the relevancy and recency of the content. And that's how you beat those guys. You beat them by having more recent answers to the query and also that local intent. I say this because I have so many people come to me and say, oh, we need to show up in California. I say, are you in California? They say, no. Okay. You have to have some relevance to it and add value to the answer that you're giving to the query. So hopefully that answers your question. And hey, Colin, how you doing? I see Colin on there as well. Hey,
oh, really? Are you seeing him? Oh, yeah. Colin, I don't know Colin. Hey.
I do. I worked with him for a little bit. Hey, Colin.
Let's see what Colin has to say. Colin says, aligning on specific deliverables and expectations for clients can be rocky in the beginning, a bit of tiptoeing back and forth until that relationship and trust is established. That's very true. Do you believe in starting with pilot programs from time to time before signing that big nut contract?
It's funny. I was just talking to a UK agency this week while I was in the UK, and I was talking to the client that was hopefully coming on board with that agency. And this is where we ended up. I said to the client, you are asking too much of the agencies to be in an RFP process. So an RFP process, for those people that don't know, request for proposal, generally you're asking for something from the agency to kind of lift the skirt a little bit and say, hey, give me a couple of ideas, or do this, do that. I said to the client, I said, what you're asking for is a project.
Yes.
So set it up as a project and pay people $2,000, $3,000 to respond to the RFP. You will get better quality and you will build a relationship, and you know who's in it for the right reasons, which means they actually want the business. They're not pitching or responding to an RFP blindly. So I believe in pilot programs if they're valuable, and I believe in paid RFPs if you have the budget for it. So if you're a big enough brand, why wouldn't you? Is the question for me as an in-house person. Why wouldn't you? And as an agency person, time is money. Your ideas are valuable. I think you should be respected, and clients can respect you if you ask for money to have ideas or to do ideation sessions. So 100%, I think pilot programs are a good idea. Not enough people do them because not enough people pitch them.
I think it's a great idea. I'll start off with pilot programs from time to time. Even if someone's like at the end of the year, like, hey, I don't have that much budget left. And they're like, oh, will you accept something that's only this much? And I'm thinking in my head, of course, what are you talking about? Only. And then yeah, we'll do the project, and it's fine. It's fine. As long as the rest of the agency is running. I'm sorry.
Can I give you a secret?
Yeah.
All right. Anytime I do that, I give them a full term invoice discounted. So I give them the full amount and I discount it, because setting expectations around cost is really interesting. I did a pilot program with this guy of $3,000. They came back for the next project at $9,000. And I said, why? And that was, we gave a discount. Well, I didn't know that. You just said we were doing a program. That you haven't scaled sufficiently for that second one to make it worth 3x. So that's the thing. Always be upfront about the larger cost and discount it and say this discount is for a pilot. Works much better in building trust.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it works a lot better. So RFPs, right? We talked about RFPs. I've always heard for years, first of all, there's agencies that they just do RFPs all day, right? So but I've always heard for years, don't do RFPs because people will take your idea. First time that happened to me, I had somebody at an agency, they were putting together a social media proposal for Newport cigarettes. So I smoked Newport cigarettes for about a week. Because I'm trying, I'm a marketer, man. I'm trying to get it. So I'm smoking these Newport cigarettes for a week. My throat's gone. I got so many great ideas, smoking these Newport cigarettes, totally getting into the zone, put so much time into it. I was so proud of myself. Sent over the proposal, sent over all the information. Crickets later on. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't get it. So, okay. So I sacrificed probably 6 months of my life to try to get this to respond to this RFP. And it really, really rubbed me the wrong way in more ways than one. But then, this year in the Super Bowl, the Coinbase Super Bowl commercial, which was the floating QR code, and that's all it was according to multiple different reports online, the result of an RFP that was presented by Kristen Cavallo of the Martin Agency to Coinbase. And that RFP's idea was to do a Super Bowl commercial with the QR code. according to these articles that I'm reading, Coinbase never paid them for the idea, took the idea directly from the RFP, and used it to run a Super Bowl commercial. One of the most talked about Super Bowl commercials of the year.
Yeah.
They
So
allegedly stole.
Yeah, I think you have to say allegedly.
Allegedly straight up stole the idea that was presented to them allegedly in an RFP,
Allegedly.
and then ran it during the big game.
And they did not allegedly run it. They did actually run it.
Yeah,
So-
they did run it.
So look,
So what do you do there? I mean, come on. Like,
okay. So
what's the answer?
I say if I was paid $1 million for my $1 million ideas, I'd be really, really rich. All right?
Right.
So your idea is only worth the time. I don't know how much time the agency spent coming up with that, but they didn't get the business. All right. Regardless of how much time, if they spent, 500 man hours to come up with a floating VR code, I would say,
What's the headcount they put
probably
into that
not
idea?
ideal. Yeah, but look, you put yourself out there in an RFP process. I remember the search agency; it would take 2 weeks to put them together. Now, I over time you get better at doing it, but you do a lot of research. You do a lot of understanding. You really have to understand the client if you're going to answer an RFP well. And RFPs are potentially massive documents with 20 or 30 questions. I mean, so at the homes.com, I think you were a part of it actually, Lauren. Do you remember the RFP process for our brand building? Maybe you weren't part
Yes, I do.
So we were totally transparent.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
it was a relief.
We were honest about everything, and everyone could see ideas and could see who was good, bad, and ugly in their opinion. And we went with an agency that presented the best idea. They had the worst execution, unfortunately, but they had the best idea. And I think if you are pitching an idea that's as simple as a VR code floating around the screen, you should not expect to end up with massive grief if someone takes that, because that's a really simple idea. Yes, the idea, and if allegedly they stole it, that's not moral, that's not ethical, and that's essentially something to bite them in the ass. Karma sucks. But that's a pretty simple idea that takes very little execution to do. I think the ideas that I would pitch, it would be really difficult for a company just to take them in SEO and run with them. You can have a good idea, but there's much more to it than that. So I think part of what we should do if we're pitching, if we respond to an RFP, is to note what resources it will take to get it done, not just this is an idea. It's got to be about what you need to get it done as part of expectation setting. And hopefully you're the company that's demonstrated the expertise to be the only people that could do it. So
Connect Danville comes back with an interesting question. Do you think adding a clause in your RFP to not duplicate or take that content or ideas and be able to utilize them is a good idea? And this gets in a little bit in the IP ownership.
I know. Well, that's what I was going to say. I think there's a pretty good case for IP if you've created something from scratch. That there's probably IP there if someone allegedly takes something. But I think it gets into let's build trust. Not be scared and paranoid about people stealing ideas. That most great ideas deserve to be out there, and if it's you or your client does it, wonderful. You never know if someone pitched exactly the same idea. You don't know that if the RFP process isn't transparent.
Good point.
And so you have to assume that most people are moral, ethical. I guess, except crypto.
It's a good point.
Allegedly.
The QR code is a 25-year-old 30-year-old
That's
technology
true.
that's suddenly come back because of COVID.
Look,
So
I love
QR codes.
Yeah, I love
Maybe
great
another
ideas. I
pitch
love
in that.
simple ideas. Yeah.
So speaking of RFPs, it's not the best acronym in the world, but I believe you do have an acronym that you stick to when you're working on specific projects.
I have lots of acronyms, but I think the one you're talking about is CRAP. Is that right?
Yes.
And in fact, I have spoke at different conferences on CRAP, whether it was CRAP content or CRAP working with agencies or whatever. And so just an acronym: communication, It is key. Communication for everything. Resources. All right. So understanding where I know you love crap. I get it. In fact, if you do a search for a crap content strategy, I think my article from Search Engine Land comes up number one. But they go,
What?
sorry. Yeah. He's still doing all this stuff.
Search engine what?
Crap content strategy. Building a crap content strategy.
Okay.
Sorry, communication resources alignment. So understanding what the key goals might be, and possibility or probability, which is what's the likelihood of success, and are you being transparent about that? Communication. We've mentioned that it really is. Over communication is always key. The idea of resources, which is making sure you have and your client have the resources to make it happen. Alignment with the goals, making sure you understand what's important to the business, and then possibility or probability. Can you be transparent about the opportunity and the opportunity for success? Is it number one?
Oh, no, because you know what Google has done. So Google took the word crap in content strategy and started associating the word crap with bad or terrible and things like that.
Not a great content strategy.
Yeah. So scary content strategy, scary bad. So it's a little bit farther down to the results because of their inability to figure out my search intent here. But I do see an article in Search Engine Watch, right?
Thank you.
Which I'm happy to talk about Search Engine Watch because we've defeated Search Engine Watch. So
kick their butt.
So they're not even around anymore. So building a crap SEO content strategy, how concepts and connections, relevance and relationships, authority and authenticity, and promotion and prominence, pardon the unfortunate acronym, provide guidelines for a content strategy that will improve website ranking and engagement. Grant, you're so ahead of your time.
That's aged pretty well. Isn't that aged well? 2013, was it?
Yeah.
It's aged pretty well.
Almost a decade ago. So we're basically talking about EAT.
What we're talking about crappy, eating crap. That's right.
Yeah. But I do give the old Search Engine Watch team kudos for this image they put together.
I made that. What do you mean?
Do that? Okay.
I made all those. Hey, there's the Monty Python guide to SEO. There's the whole thing there. I excelled there.
Thank you. So
we finished with crap. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, this show's just been full of crap today. But you know what? I'm going to use this in the future. I'm going to revisit. I think we should revisit this strategy somehow.
I'd love to chat again.
I'm a little bit upset that you did not. I've never seen you do a presentation about this.
That's funny. You can look back, or I'll send something over to you. I'm sure, because I did it C3.
Oh, okay.
A while back, I did crap content strategy, or I did It Ain't Over Till the Cat Lady Sings,
okay.
Which was all about crap, kitten crap, cat crap, things like that.
Got it.
And I did something at PubCon, which I think was a crap strategy for agencies.
Maybe if I went to the sessions.
Yeah, maybe if you went to the sessions, you'd actually hear me talk.
Okay. So enough about crap. I've learned so much from you today, Grant, especially in-house agency, that in between, the blurred lines going back and forth. Another thing, do you still have time? You good time-wise?
You know what? I can talk to you all day.
Okay, so
although not literally.
I think that you had posted something about you have been at each of your positions for an average of 7 years.
That is correct, which makes me old, and I do not include the family business in that. Okay,
so right now we're at a time, it's a great resignation, right? People are hopping around left and right. I'll talk to someone that's been at a company for 3 months, and the next thing I know, they're leaving and they've gone somewhere else. And then the agency becomes the archive of record, right? Which is a cool position to be in from an agency perspective. But what recommendations do you give out there in terms of sticking around? Is the grass always greener on the other side? Are there benefits to committing to a project or a position or a company for longer than 6 months, a year, 2 years, on that end? Do you have any words of advice for anyone that's out there on the job market, or maybe thinking about hopping somewhere after they've been somewhere for, a shorter amount of time?
Words of wisdom from the
Yes.
sage Grant. Okay. Well, look, the reason I have been at jobs for a certain amount of time, and it's really not like a 7-year itch, is because I am driven by growth.
Okay.
And to be part of something that you grow is very special. And to be honest, that's a 5 to 7 year plan.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lots of acceleration that's feasible and growth hacking, whatever you want to call it. But to establish something, it takes 5 to 7 years. That's why most small businesses don't last 5 to 7 years. Because they don't make it. They don't put a foundation in. So even if you go to an established company or established agency, what you find is there is a project. There's a project. That's what excites me, whether it was working in the marketing agency originally, which was doing corporate events and morphed to presentations, morphed to, web, whether it's my own agency, starting off with one and, one client and ended up with 140 clients, whether it was the search agency, which was that 80th employee to 250. We grew things, and homes.com, we grew stuff. We grew a brand, we grew a culture. It's not always about growth of traffic for an SEO. Sometimes it's about building the best team out there. So that's a 5 to 7 years. So my next opportunity will be looking for 5 to 7 years of helping someone grow. That could be brand side, could be agency, it could be, consulting. But the thing is, growth is what's promised. Growth is the expectation. You join, and you should join a company to grow with that company. If you pick up enough information to make more value in 3 months, I have a small secret to tell you. You haven't. All right? Because 3 months does not make you an expert. And I've seen this. I've seen it. I've not hired people that jump around too much, because there is never a good excuse unless it's culture. And you can find out. So the Great Resignation is unfortunate for many companies.
It's unfortunate because now it's the great layoffs that are starting to occur.
They're starting to occur. And I think that's just a function of economy. We don't have to get
Purple,
into that.
CNN Plus, all like boom.
Yeah. But that's the thing. To answer your question succinctly, the grass is not always greener, but it's good to help something grow. And if that's grass, it's not growing under your feet, it's growing around you. And that's the thing for me, is I've learned something at every job I've worked at. I've managed to contribute to every job I've worked at. I've managed to grow every business I've worked for. And that is why I go to work. Now, if you're just after growing your salary, no one wins. The outcome is a better salary. The actual benefit of work is purpose. And I think that that's something that's missed today by folks job hopping for a title or money or for a bigger brand. I think it's about personal growth, and personal growth does not come from trying to learn something new every 3 months. It comes from learning something every day, whether it's with clients or a brand. So that was my sage advice, Lauren.
I love those words of wisdom. That's why I've stuck around SEJ for almost 20 years now.
They still have you. Yeah. I hear the boss is really tough though. Yeah.
Try. And yeah, man, it is funny because it does take 5 years to establish a business. Yeah. Typically, once a business is around for 5 years, it's good, right? You have your pitfalls, your ups and downs, your staffing, everything else, but it's at a 5 year mark. So it's interesting to hear that line up with the decisions that you've made, and with your wisdom that you've passed on. Last thing, I really love the Virginia Beach area. I grew up on the Delmarva Peninsula. I grew up on the eastern shore of Maryland. Crabs and rockfish and oysters and corn and all of that stuff. Tell the crowd a little bit about how a guy from the UK who used to live in sunny California spent quite a bit of time down in the Caribbean, ended up in the Hampton Roads area, and a huge lover of Virginia Beach.
Wow. And because we have walked the very Virginia Beach on Chesapeake Bay.
Yep.
It's one of the wonderful things. I'm very fortunate that I live here, but California, I loved the weather. There are some fantastic people there, yourself included, Lauren.
Thank you.
But traffic sucks, and the stress of traffic and the, not say fast pace, but too fast paced lifestyle. And, you talk about, when you got a pitch for a cigarette company, why didn't you get a pitch for a Porsche company? That's the challenge with LA, is it's all about the car. And that's unfortunate. So I had the opportunity at the search agency, built up a personal brand and was pitched a few different companies. I had a few opportunities, responded to a few job opportunities I thought would be interesting. And guys from Dominion Enterprises reached out to me. They've never hired really outside the company. They're looking for an SEO expert. I use that term loosely, maybe SEO experienced person. Mm-hmm. I had that experience. And so I went out to Norfolk, Virginia, which, as everyone knows, is not a big town.
Nope. Tallest building, right? Is Dominion Enterprise still the tallest building in Norfolk, or is that the?
It is one of the tallest. It's not the tallest, but the tallest building in Virginia is actually in Virginia Beach, in Virginia, not just Virginia. Yeah, in Virginia. So anyway, without boring people, the bottom line is this company knew about me and knew I loved sailing.
Oh.
And pointed out the window at the sailboats on the river. And this was the president of the company, said to me, I know you love sailing. We have one other leader here that sails. I'll introduce him to right away. And then I'll introduce you to the guys down there that have the sailing fleet. Because when you are, it doesn't matter where, when you are going for a job, the most important thing is knowing that the culture is a fit. Knowing they appreciate who you are and what your passion is. It's how I hire, and it's how I love to be hired. So that answers the question. I ended up there. I met my fantastic wife, Paige, here, and we have a wonderful life. This sounds like it's almost like a commercial for Virginia Beach. It's lovely here. Come here to Virginia Beach.
One of the best quality of living in the USA. 3 years in a row by U.S. News and World Report.
You could have 20% more lifestyle here in Virginia Beach with 15 minutes. No. Bottom line is, everyone has to find the place they love, what they love doing, and the person they love to be with. If all those three are together, you should be happy and grateful. And I'm very grateful.
I love it. And that's the bottom line, because Grant Simmons says so. Grant, it's been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure having you on today. Great advice. Great catching up. Next time I'm over there, I keep on referring it to the Eastern Shore. But next time I'm over there in the Delmarva area, I'll hit you up. I'm looking forward to another morning walk. So
hey, thanks for everyone for tuning in as well. And thanks, Lauren, for inviting me. We finally made it happen.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. I'm really impressed that you just flew in from the UK as well. So,
well, no, I got home
almost nap time.
9:45 last night. I'm still going.
Yeah.
It's all right. Well, look, thanks everyone again. Thank you. And
all right, great.
Let's do it soon. Do it again soon. What the heck?
Great. Thank you, Grant. Thank you to InMotion Hosting for making today's episode possible. And thank you to all of you that tuned in today or who are currently listening to the show on Apple, Google, YouTube, and wherever we are. Ring the bell, hit this, hit that, like it, we're good. Let's get out of here. Have a good one, Grant. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more and click the notification bell so you don't miss a thing.